everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown right along ringside. By golly, we're about ready to go with more big action.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Georgia Championship Wrestling. I'm Gordon Soler, your host, and we have quite an hour in store for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Championship Wrestling at ringside. This is Vince McMahon, along with wrestling's only living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, another outstanding card.
Hey, guys, and welcome back to another edition of the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories. That's right, 100% guaranteed territory talk each and every time out here on the show. And I'm your host, Ray Russell, and this week here on Regional Wrestling, going to close out the month of January in 1985 for the Memphis territory with guest Gene Jackson. Can't wait to get to that in just a couple minutes. It's safe to say always something new and unique in the Memphis territory each and every week here on the show. From This Is Your Life, Jerry Lawler, to Broken Rings, Playboy Frazier's Nuggets.
He is shaking the Nuggets off right now, Randy.
Mike Sharpe's Mistakes.
He wants to get in there, and he wants this stretcher. What do they call this, a stretcher match? Is this what they call this?
You got a title on the line, I know that.
Okay, it's not a stretcher match. This is a title match right here.
And the Dirty White Boys receiving gift cards to TGI Friday, only in Memphis. And before we get going, just a friendly reminder that you guys can listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast and our sister shows, like the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF Project, heading into WrestleMania 4 over there on the Grenade. Also, you can listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time and talks about his 20-year career in the wrestling industry, both in the ring as well as behind the scenes. Also coming to the brand, it's the Pro Wrestling Academy podcast with the Professor Pro Racer himself, Mr. Dan Giannetti. So happy to announce that Dan is joining the brand as he breaks down the history of Japanese professional wrestling. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And be sure to follow me on social media, guys, for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. And you can find me over there on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. Over 9,000 followers over there on Facebook and counting. And hey, while you're at it, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel, guys? YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. If you guys have been paying attention, you know I've been adding the Memphis shows along with the episodes I drop with Gene Jackson, Steve Crawford. You know I've been dropping the UWF shows with the shows I've been doing here with Roman Gomez. Well, by August time, guys, here with Jamie Ward in Georgia, we're going to start dropping the Georgia shows as often as I can on my YouTube channel as well. And hey, some of the more recent July episodes also been going up lately there on YouTube. So check it out. And last but certainly not least, now would be a fantastic time to become a WrestleCopia patron. And you can find me over there at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. And of course, I'm bringing to you guys that $5 all access tier. Gets you all sorts of gifts for just $5, including all of my insanely detailed show notes for every episode of The Grenade, Monday Warfare, and of course, the Regional Wrestling Podcast. You'll also get early access to many of the podcasts here on WrestleCopia, where you can listen days and sometimes as much as a week earlier than the rest of the listeners. In fact, episode 38 of Regional Wrestling dropped 5 days early. Episode 39 of Regional Wrestling dropped 1 week early. And this episode right here of Regional Wrestling dropped a week early also, only on Patreon. But I'm not done. You'll also get remastered versions of the earliest episodes of The Grenade Show, covering the 1989 NWA project. Includes enhanced sound quality, plus new content and conversation never heard before. But that's still not all. You also get digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure, and of course, the Patreon exclusive watch-along series covering many past WWF and WCW events. And there's even random bonus video drops from time to time. And of course, you're going to want to be part of the upcoming video casts. Watch along with us as we cover many past wrestling events for the United States, Japan, and beyond. No stone left unturned, including Grunt the Wrestling Movie, coming very soon. Thanks to co-host Gene Jackson with that one. So it's going to be a fun time over there on Patreon, and you get all of that for the low, low price of just $5. No subscription, cancel anytime. Give it a try for a month. I think you'll like all the content that we offer, and every penny of it goes right back here into paying the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and all of the wonderful shows here up and running for the months and the years to come. All right, with all of that said, time to dive back into 1985 in the Memphis territory, heading back to the CWA and Jerry Jarrett Promotions. Okay, guys, not going to waste any time. Going to bring him back. Always a good time here on the show whenever we see Gene Jackson around. So welcome him back for more Memphis 85. Welcome back, as I said, Gene Jackson.
All right, we're ready to take another trip back to Memphis in 1985, Ray. Are you excited?
Well, I was until, I watched the show. No, I'm absolutely super excited, Gene. I can't wait to get it going here. Yeah, man, it was quite an interesting week in the Memphis territory. That's for sure. And
in the immortal words of Larry David, curb your enthusiasm.
I cannot wait until we get out of the winter here in 1985 Memphis. I'll say that much.
Yeah, it leaves a little bit to be desired, but we're going to have some fun with it. Like I say, it's not the best that Memphis has to offer, but there is some entertainment, as perverse as it may be at times, to be found where you look for it.
If you know what you're looking for, you can find it certainly here in the Memphis territory anyway. And remind me later in the show, Gene, if you remember by that point, that I had an epiphany after I watched this program. If you can remember at the end of the show, maybe we'll call back to that because I'll get into it there. I don't want to spoil everybody with my thoughts heading into the show. But after watching it, I said, why the f-? And then I was like, maybe because... And then we'll talk about it then.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. So anyways, recap real quick, guys. Last week on the Memphis edition of Regional Wrestling, it was the January 21st Night of Champions at the Mid-South Coliseum, but it was canceled due to inclement weather. But we covered last week's TV, the Jerry Lawler show, the Louisville Gardens, and the tickets being sold at the local Tasty Freeze. So lots of great stuff on the last episode. But we fast forward a week here, guys, and we move on to the weekend of January 26th, Saturday morning. But before we get going, I actually queued up a promo that aired during the Jackson, Mississippi arena show involving Lance Russell speaking with the, once again, Southern Tag Team Champions, the Interns.
We had them, and here they are. You can't miss them. I'm talking about the Interns, the AWA Southern Tag Champions, standing right here with their belts. And we at least will say this. We appreciate you coming by, to be honest, because we want to ask you about those titles.
Well, first, let me ask you a question. Just a minute there ago, you said you guys are very controversial.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
Don't that mean everybody talks about you?
Yeah, they talk about
you. Baby.
They say a lot of different things.
Well, now, wait a minute. If they talking about you, you got to be on their minds, right?
Right, baby. Yeah.
And when you're the Southern Heavyweight Champions, Jack, that's where you want to be, on the people's minds, on everybody's minds, because we are proud to be the Southern Heavyweight Champions. We are proud to represent this area as Southern Heavyweight Champions.
Well, for a little while, you weren't the Southern Tag Team Champions because the belts were held up in a match with the Dirty White Boys, and it resulted in a tournament following that.
Well, let me explain to you, Lance Russell. The Fabs were crying, the promotion's crying, hey, what are you going to do about these guys? What are you going to do about this? Well, they try to pull a big swerve on us and get them belts held up so somebody else could win these belts. They flew teams in from everywhere, all over the country.
Big tournament.
But you see, Jack, right here in the end, the class stands alone, baby. It's just like trying to run jackasses against Secretariat, baby. They just can't win.
Yeah. I know one thing. The Dirty White Boys, doggone near had you beat and clear, and the referee had a situation where he had to make a decision on it. He was caught after being dazed in there, I might say being knocked down in there, where ultimately they had to hold the belts up. The Dirty White Boys thought they should have had them, and of course you guys were screaming, they're our belts and we should have them in there. But that isn't what happened following the match we're going to take a look at.
Well, in the end, baby, we don't care about the buts, ifs, ands, or ours. We care about what happens in the end, and right here is the end. Right here.
There was, the belts held up. Then the tournament was held despite you guys complaining about it. And you had a match, you went all the way to the finals against the Rock and Roll Express, and again people were complaining about how you won that match.
Lance Russell, that's your opinion. Those people love us, and you know it. You're out here trying to lie to these people and tell them something that's not absolutely true. Now, let me tell these people something that you didn't tell them. We wrestled in a tournament, 4 matches. We had a total of 12 minutes in 4 matches. Now, what does that tell you?
Yeah, you bet. Okay, you want them. Let's take a look and let the people decide when you wrestle the Rock and Roll Express for the titles. Well, okay. There's the match where you won it with the Rock and Roll Express. Here's the big question now. You finally have agreed, I guess you agreed, your name's on the contract, to a return match with the Fabulous One.
Well, you know what it was, Lance Russell? All the time, it wasn't us, it was those boys. I tell you, Ray Charles could see through their act. They had to lead each other up to the contract signing, and one had to hold the other's hand while they signed their names down, Jack. They shook so much there was sweat all around them. I'll tell you one thing, they know what they're in for, brother, and they only got a sample. Stan and Steve, you only got a sample, brother, of what's yet to come, because when you come for this, you're taking something, brother, that means a lot to us. And when it comes down to the final get-go, baby, we want the bucks, we want the gold. And right here's where it is. Feel it, Lance Russell. That's what's causing all the controversy, baby. 8 pounds, 8 pounds, 600.
Those are the interns. We'll be back in a moment.
So they gave these guys basically an entire segment of that arena show, but I thought they did a pretty good job. Well, obviously Roger Smith, Don Bass just kind of hanging in the back there, but Roger Smith did a really good job of getting the team over, talking about the past history. They initially defeated the Fabs for the titles. We both know, we've talked about it at length. The titles were held up, Southern Tag Team Tournament, and of course they win them back in the finals again, this time over the Rock and Rolls. I don't know, I really enjoyed the promo there. Roger Smith being given time to get the team over, and without Troy Graham, and I thought he did a good job.
Absolutely. You know, Roger Smith's a guy who is underrated on the mic and usually doesn't really get a word in because, you know, you got Troy Graham there and, you know, he's never at a loss for words. And then here recently you've had Jimmy Hart in the mix a lot of times too. But, yeah, Roger Smith could more than carry his weight on the mic. So, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, obviously I chopped out the match results in between there, but I just thought it was really cool that they gave him an entire segment to get themselves over, and I thought he did a good job. As we continue on, guys, January 26th, Saturday morning, Memphis, Tennessee, Channel 5 Studios. It's Lance Russell and Dave Brown hosting. As we kick off the show, Lancer promised us we're going to hear from Kern and Lane today, but first a commercial break. And then back from break, as promised, it's Kern and Lane, Gene, but not the ones you're thinking of. Nope, it was a swerve, bro. Lance Russell, he didn't say which Kern and Lane we were going to get as he heads over to the studio crowd to interview the fathers of the Fabulous Ones, Colonel Dick Kern of the U.S. Air Force and Wally Lane. So instead of Stan and Steve, it's Wally and Dick. Instead of Wally and the Beeve, it's Wally and the Dick.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. But, you know, again, and you hear this so often, this is such a Memphis thing. Like, they would not have turned it on WWF and been like, all right, we got the British Bulldogs dads out here, you know, just to have the Hart Foundation end up, you know, confronting them. So,
well, even if so, it would have been in a much larger arena. I mean, they should have just had these guys come out from the back and have a word with them rather than having them sit here with this, you know, 20 fans in this studio audience here at WMC. But I just thought that was funny. But a little context here for guys, for anybody who doesn't know, they don't know deeper history. Dick Kern, he was born near me in Akron, Ohio, and he worked in Angle like 10 years prior to this in the Florida territory with, obviously, with his son Steve Kern feuding with Bob Roop, who had like no respect. The gimmick was he had no respect for war veterans or people in the military, which is kind of funny because Bob Roop was in the military. He was a paratrooper, a medic. So it was all just a gimmick, but he got so much heat down there. He told this story on his show that one day he was walking in during that feud and a fan pulled a gun out right in his face because he had defamed the United States Army, the Air Force, what have you. So it's kind of crazy here, but he's back for another angle, and this time it's in Memphis. But Kern, that is Steve Kern's father, he was the real deal. I wanted to Google him, but he was a real-life war hero. Colonel in the Air Force, fought in World War II, the Korean War, in Vietnam, 27 badges and medals of honor, including the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, Legion of Merit, Purple Heart, Prisoner of War Medal, the Flying Cross. The dude literally has his own wiki page, Gene. Like, he's literally got his own page. But the story that really got me was he was shot down twice, prisoner of war in 2 different wars. First in Germany back in 1944 during World War II, but this is the big one. He was shot down during the Vietnam War, and he was a prisoner of war for 7.5 years, tortured for 7.5 years before he was rescued.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I had no idea.
I didn't know the lengths of it until I read it myself, but the stories are everywhere. It's not just his wiki page. Anybody can fill that in, but it's all over the internet. I mean, it has nothing to do with wrestling, just his story. I was really fascinated with it, that he, nearly 8 years in Vietnam and tortured, and somehow still humble enough to pop up here in Memphis Rasslin, put him in the studio for an angle.
Yeah, he's sitting out in the crowd because I guess, typically, people, tag teams, their dads hang out together. Why wouldn't he just be chilling with Stan Lane's dad out there in the studio crowd in Memphis?
Sure, why not? One's in Florida, one's in the Carolinas. They're right next door, sure. So Lance Russell going to interview the Fabs fathers here, the original Kern and Lane, if you will. So I guess their grandfathers don't count. But their first time in Memphis, Tennessee, the fathers selling Tennessee as the second home of their boys, and they hope they'll move back here soon. Joking, hopefully maybe Lance can twist their arms. I wrote, why do they care, Gene? They don't live here in Tennessee, the fathers, I mean. They can't even watch this. So Jerry Jarrett clearly pulling out all the stops here, trying to get everybody to get the fans to support the Fabs coming home again after burying them about this time last year.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as soon as that statement was made. I'm like, what do they care if they're in Tennessee? Like, what are they trying to get away from them? I wish they'd move back here to Tennessee and get out of our hair, Yeah,
it confused me because they don't live in Tennessee, but boy, I sure wish they would move back here. That'd be great. We couldn't see him at all. Exactly. Remember, Lance says this is their first time in the Memphis territory, so it was kind of fun. We see him out there interviewing the fathers when out of nowhere entered Troy Graham and his interns. Troy telling Lance Russell to come over here and interview some real wrestlers, not some fat slobs in the crowd. Gotta love Troy Graham.
I mean, that statement takes on a whole new meaning now, knowing Colonel Kern's history and everything. Right. I knew his dad was, a military hero, but I didn't know what all he had been through. So just to refer to him as fat slobs from the crowd.
Oh,
Troy Graham every week just really nails it.
I don't want to spoil anything because we're not going to hear it this week. But Troy Graham going to get more personal and more outlandish with the comments he makes towards Dick Kern in the future weeks here, and it's good if you guys like jokes anyway. But it's some really, it's like, wow, I can't believe he said that type stuff. So, but I promise we'll have those sound bites in the weeks to come. But I just found it ironic, that Troy's out here telling these guys that they're fat slobs when I look at the interns over here. But I'm sure that was done on purpose. Troy mentions that the fabulous ones, the daydreamers, dirty white boys, hey, bring them all on. As it's off to the ring for our opening matchup, going to see the Southern Champions interns right here taking on the daydreamers.
Yes, the Daydreamers have been absent from TV recently. They've been in action on the cards we've gone over, but we hadn't seen them on TV in a bit. Here they are in the ring with the champs, non-title, of course, but nonetheless.
That's how you book a new gimmick. You put masks on them and then you stop showing them on TV. So just total booking 101 there. But of course, this is non-title guys for the Southern Tag Team title. So maybe the Daydreamers, they have a chance. We're going to wait and see. The intern's going to jump the Dreamers as they enter the ring, and the match is on. They work over Dreamer number 1 as they now have matching white trunks, I know, to the Daydreamers. They're not in separate gear, so they're a little harder to tell apart. They got masks and matching trunks, so, hey, they're getting their act together. But I wrote, boy, Don Bass could really move for a guy his size, the larger of the two interns, for those who don't know, literally hitting the ropes and jumping over the body of the Daydreamer and landing an elbow on the other side of his body. It marveled me as to how well Don Bass could move. He didn't look like a whole lot.
No, for guys that size, really could have got away with working that big man style where they didn't bump much and didn't really leave their feet. But, I mean, those guys don't always get enough credit for
No, they came to work.
Well, they moved around the ring and bumped their butts off. I mean, they were quite the workers, as a tag team. And Don Bass, he moved well for a guy. I mean, he wasn't Bam Bam Bigelow or anything. But He certainly was impressive. When you seen those two guys standing out there, if you had turned on Memphis TV the first time, you see them out there with Troy Graham, you're like, oh, look at these guys, Then once the bell rings and they start moving around, you're like, whoa, that's not at all what I was expecting.
No, when you look at him, obviously you're going to think kick, punch, maybe an eye gouge, rub his eyes across the top. The basic heel stuff, that's totally fundamentally sound in a heel wrestler, especially in a tag team, a masked tag team like this, just some generic moves, if you will. But no, these guys, like you said, they came to bump, and not just on TV, but everywhere. Every time we see them, they really put on a hell of a match. As this match continues, they get a big double backdrop on the Daydreamer number 1, and then we get the hot tag out to Dreamer number 2, leading quickly to a 4-way melee, as the fans are honestly, well, they're pretty indifferent here, Gene. They really don't make a whole lot of noise at the hot tag. Even Johnny Wilhoit got a bigger pop than this last week, so it doesn't say a whole lot for the Daydreamers right now.
I mean, it very well could be because, they pop up on TV with that odd angle with the Nightmares that, that brought on this Daydreamer gimmick. And then, like you say, they just kind of disappeared, and now they just pop up here randomly. I don't know why anybody would expect the fans to be overjoyed about any of this, but, you would think just for the heat, that the interns have gathered with all their stuff with Dirty White Boys and the tournament shenanigans that, anybody doing anything to them would raise some excitement. But no, you're right. It was pretty indifferent, and it's just like, we know how this is going to go.
Yeah, I wrote the crowd noise was indifferent, which means either we have a shittier crowd this week, but who knows. But also, they've done a terrible job of making the Dreamers mean something. You just mentioned that yourself. I don't really know what they can do with them at this point. It's kind of like an afterthought, unfortunately, sad to say, because they had a story going there. They take the masks of the Nightmares. Obviously, the Nightmares want revenge, and we got that right at the beginning of the month. But by this point, it's going, like you said, every week we see those matches on the house shows, but it really doesn't play out here on TV at all.
Well, and as we mentioned from the get-go, they brought them in the dumbest way possible. They put their name up on the card for Monday night, and then the Nightmares kind of blow it in the promo. They're just like, they say these Daydreamers are just Constance and Ashley in their masks. And,
I still can't believe that.
And I think from right there, you'd let the air out of them before they ever showed their, I won't say face, showed their masks.
So we do break things down here for all 4 guys in the ring, and the Dreamers both going for the masks of the Interns, going to try to rip the masks off the heels. But referee Jerry Calhoun becomes distracted by 2 of the men, while the other 2 men fight near the ropes. And with a Daydreamer's head sticking out of the ropes, Troy Graham takes a swing from his wheelchair with a steel chair to the crown of the Dreamer's head, and the Intern's going to steal the 1, 2, 3. Match only goes 1 minute and 36 seconds, and I really don't know where to start with this one. I feel like we just saw a similar finish last week first, but also 90 seconds? The Daydreamers, like I said, just feel like afterthoughts.
I mean, the Daydreamers were a lower mid-card team at best. A week or 2 ago, we saw David Haskins and Johnny Wilhoit go like 9 minutes or whatever it was with, with Gilbert, Gilbert and Sharpe. And now the Daydreamers can't last a minute and a half with the Interns. It's all over the place.
So we opened up the show. We heard from the Fabs fathers. We heard a little bit from Troy Graham there. We got to see the Interns in action. Obviously, they took the title, stole the titles from the Fabulous Ones at the end of last year. And now we cut away to a VTR promo from Stan Lane of the Fabulous Ones, who says the Fabs, they've been everywhere now. Vancouver, Winnipeg, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, everywhere. Yeah, that sounds like everywhere, Stan. They wanted to get away to prove to the fans, to Jackie Fargo, and to themselves that they can get it done anywhere. They're ranked number 1 in the country right now, per the wrestling magazines. And while it's been fun and it's been glamorous, nothing beats the feeling of coming home to Memphis. So Stan Lane looking for a cheap pop there. We're coming home to Memphis, Tennessee. He says they climbed and conquered the mountains. Now they're coming home versus the Interns for the most coveted straps in the business, the Southern Tag Team titles, which he says with a straight face.
Yeah, there goes all your credibility, Stan Lane. Come on, man.
I wrote, man, did Stan Lane film a lot of promos at once? It feels like we're going to see weeks of these promos for various towns with Stan Lane in the same baseball cap, same sunglasses, sitting in the same position wherever the hell he is. He doesn't even attempt to move around or make it look different. Doesn't take the hat off. He just didn't give a shit. He's just sitting there cutting promos by himself. I don't know what, it was just like really Stan, because we're going to see this over and over again over the next several weeks.
Yeah, I had to look twice, like, is this the same promo? And
Yeah.
like, no, he's saying different things, but like, you couldn't turn the hat backwards, take the glasses off, take the hat off, put the hat on, put it sideways. Like, nope, like you said, static position. All right, where's this one? And then he would just rattle it off, and then, all right, where's the next one?
Well, obviously, they're trying to get their popularity back with the fans in Memphis, Tennessee after, being buried on the way out last year. He says they're coming home, referencing Memphis as their home.
Yeah, it almost has a similar feeling to someone else who recently came home to a place that dumped on him when he left. if we want to talk about more recent times, which we don't, but I noticed that too when I watched this. I was like, oh, that's where Punk got it.
So, anywho, we realize by this point, the Fabulous Ones are indeed on their way back to the territory. They're going to be back before you guys know it. As we continue on, we get a music video here for the Fabs set to the Boys Are Back in Town. That town being Memphis, in case you guys don't know by now. Also, Lance Russell, he's going to bring back over Papa Kern and Big Daddy Lane to the announcer's desk to finish up their conversation that was so rudely interrupted earlier in the show. As Troy Graham immediately interrupts him once again to show some film for himself. He goes back in time to December 3rd at the Mid-South Coliseum, where the Interns defeated the Fabulous Ones for the Southern titles. The Fabs then land a double DDT in the matchup on intern Roger Smith, but it's intern Don Bass loading his mask and laying out Kern as the Interns did steal the tag team titles. But then from there, Troy Graham mocking Dick Kern here for being fairly overweight, to be fair. But even the overweight Colonel Kern quips that he could beat Troy Graham. As the funny spot happens next, where Dick Kern takes hold of Troy's wheelchair, turns it around, and gently pushes it off camera. I wrote fun stuff.
Yeah, because my first thought was like, okay, well, tough guy. You just threatened to beat up a guy in a wheelchair. But like, no, he didn't beat him up. He just turned him around and sent him on his way.
Yeah, for a guy who spent most of his life in the military, I feel like he got it. Like, he didn't take the wheelchair. He didn't look confused. He didn't give him a big shove. He just gently pushed it off screen to make it all the more funny.
Yes.
It's like Troy Graham couldn't do anything about it. It was great. It was like a movie. I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun. Like this turned out to be better when we first started going into this, and I was like, oh man, the Interns and the Fabulous Ones dads, like, this can't be good. And it was better than I had expected it to be.
Yeah, actually, well, I'll wait until we finish this segment up. So Troy Graham is pushed off screen, which is just hilarious. But look out, Fabs Dads, because it's the Interns. The masked men attack the elderly Fab fathers here. Kern, the elder of the two and the larger of the two, takes a nasty bump across the studio floor and then eats a beatdown. Meanwhile, Stan Lane's daddy, not so much. He doesn't really want to bump. So I kind of see where Stan got that from now. It's Papa Lane just kind of stands there, bending over and getting hammered on. Then it's the baby faces out to make the save. The Daydreamers, Mercy Jimmy Valiant, Johnny Wilhoit, Buck Rock and Roll Fuck Off, and the Dirty White Boys, hot off their trip to TGI Fridays.
Yes, I think I seen them polishing off a mozzarella stick as they come through the curtain. But yeah, I had the same thought. Like, yeah, Stan Lane comes by. Honestly, it's apparently a family tradition.
I love it. Takes this many baby faces to come out and make the save the day. Remember, where's Jerry Lawler in this entire thing? By the way, I guess he's a little too busy to make the save. We'll see the King later in the program. But yeah, it was a hell of a lot of people to run off the Interns here. But I guess they were just trying to get over the beatdown, the attack. But I got to tell you, man, Steve Kern's father did an awesome job. Like, he hit the studio, went sliding, like he took a real bump, man. And I don't know how old he was here. I didn't do the notes as far as that goes, but he wasn't no spring chicken. And he wasn't like in tremendous shape either, right, to be taking a bump like that across the studio. But yeah, Stan Lane's dad just kind of bent over.
No, it made you wonder if maybe he might not have legit gotten hurt, not intentionally, but just the fact that he went down so hard. But let me tell you, if we were one of those podcasts that were strictly here to shill, you best believe tomorrow morning there would be a Fab Dads t-shirt for sale with a free phone call from Ray if you bought it.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see what we
That's
can
what
do.
I'm here for, man. I'm the genius behind the grunt idea. I'm going to keep pitching these things. We'll see what sticks.
You are the genius. See what I did there? There you go.
Nice.
So we get like 10 wrestlers out here to make the save, but no fabulous ones because they're not here, Gene. The irony that their fathers attend a fucking TV show for the first time ever, and they're not even here.
Yeah, so let's, from a kayfabe perspective in 1985,
okay,
watching this at home, I'm supposed to believe that the Fabulous One's dads, who Lance just told us, this is their first time in Memphis, packed up, flew to Memphis, Tennessee to sit in the TV5 studio to watch the interns wrestle the freaking Daydreamers in a minute and a half clinic, tag team clinic, and Buck Rock and Roll Zoomhoff in action. Like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of wondering. That just don't really seem to fly, but I'll buy it, I guess.
Who are you to doubt the Fab Fathers? As we continue on, Lance Russell going to run down the Mid-South Coliseum card for tomorrow night, Sunday, special Sunday 3 p.m. start time show on January 27th, and they kept those special reduced prices, $4, $5, and $6, kids 10 and under, $1 for general admission and parking, only $1 as well. Remember, last week was canceled, so the card changed up. Every match of the card changed besides the main event, or one of the main events, I should say. For instance, remember it was the Macho Man. He was going to take on Buddy Landell for the Central States title, and Adrian Street was going to challenge Terry Taylor for the international title. Well, they kind of condensed those matches now. It's just the Macho Man taking on Adrian Street. We've got the Nightmares continuing to wrestle the Daydreamers. Hair versus, well, on the screen it said $1,500, but Lance Russell, quick to point out, that should read $500 because, in the kayfabe world, we got to correct something like that.
I laughed out loud at that. I was like, who gives a shit? Let them think it's 15. It raises the stakes, Lance. Like, what?
What if it, the first time when I was skimming this, I wasn't listening, right? So I just thought it was 15. When I went back and heard that, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I couldn't, Lance Russell having to correct that. It's like, wow, man, seriously? It's going to be the Playboy Frazier's hair up against the Batten Twins, $500. I wrote, apparently Frazier, he only beat one of the Battens last time, according to Lance Russell here, so he gave up that $500 after all. So this is his chance simply to get it back. So the Battens aren't putting anything on the line. They're offering to put up the money that Frazier gave them, which makes it even worse.
Wow. $1,500 versus Frazier's hair. Well, let's hope he keeps them beautiful locks intact.
No, that's $500, Gene, not 15.
My bad, Lancer. Yeah, Lancer ain't going to lead you wrong. He's going to be honest with you.
That's right, yeah. Also on the card, handicap action, the Dirty White Boys taking on the Terminators and Jimmy Hart. So the Terminators are back in town, unfortunately. And then from there, Texas Death Match, the only match still happening from last week. Jerry the King Lawler defending his Southern title against Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. And the other main event, going to see the Fabulous Ones back in town to take on the Southern Tag Team Champions, the Interns.
Were they already going to challenge the Interns, or is it just strictly based off the fact that they attacked the Fabulous One's fathers, I should say?
I think.
Was that match already signed?
Well, I would think, since the segment just happened 2 minutes ago, I would hope that this match was already signed, but who knows?
Again, more irony that the Fabulous One's fathers would just happen to be in the studio watching the Saturday before they get into town to have their big match with the Interns. But
yeah,
it's just, lucky it worked out that way, I guess.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the card here, and I just don't understand. So many Memphis talent still here from last week, but they just changed the entire card for the most part, outside of Lawler and Eddie Gilbert, which you kind of had to do. But we'll wait and see what happens here. We go into a commercial break here, and you either texted me or Skyped me or tweeted me or Facebooked me, or you did something. You said, hey, man, I caught this commercial. I wanted you to share it with everybody here.
Yeah, so I watched this the first time several weeks back. And so I was like, man, let me watch this again right before we do the podcast as a kind of a refresher. Usually when the commercials are on, a lot of times I'll look at my phone or whatever. But this time I just happened to be watching the screen, and this KFC commercial was on. And I was like, man, that guy looks just like Keenan Ivory Wayans from In Living Color. And then it cut to another scene, and it cut back to him at the end. I'm like, dang, I think that's him. So I went and Googled it, and sure enough, it was him. And I was a big fan of In Living Color back in the day.
Yeah, that's how you started the conversation with me. I didn't know where you were going with it because you were just like, hey, Ray, did you watch In Living Color back in the day? I was like, yeah, every week. You're like, yeah, I think I just saw Keenan Ivory weigh-ins on a KFC commercial back in 1985. I was like, wow, awesome.
Yeah, because I've got some friends, like, if I would have just led with, hey, Keenan Ivory weigh-ins is one of these commercials, they'd have been like, who the hell is Keenan Ivory weigh-in? So if your response would have been like, what's In Living Color? I'd have been like, never mind, man. See you next week.
No, I used to watch that religiously, at least in the peak seasons before the weigh-ins got smart and sold it off just in time. Kind of like the Fullers in Alabama or something. They got the hell out of there. Show continues on here. It's Jimmy Hart in a very dapper-looking Playboy Frazier this week. I wrote, well, someone rented a tuxedo. Playboy looking extra sharp here in his tuxedo and hat.
Man, where do you go to rent a tuxedo that size, though? I mean, because I don't think they just have that one on the rack ready to rock and roll. So, but they tracked him one down, and like you said, he was definitely looking more like Playboy Frazier than at any point at this, in this big tuxedo. Yeah,
no, he really came balls to the wall this week with the gimmick, as he says, all the ladies, all the broads are coming after the Playboy. I wrote, man, Stan Frazier has got it. He gets it. Wasted talent in the WWF. I'm not talking about good wrestling. I'm just talking about character-wise. Boy, did Vince drop the ball. And we know he didn't watch other things, but Jimmy Hart, I can't believe Jimmy Hart didn't take this tape and say, Vince, you got to watch this. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing your shtick. But he's, Vince, you got to watch this. It's Uncle Elmer, the Uncle Elmer. Look at this. And man, we could have got something totally different there out of Uncle Elmer before he left.
I mean, you think they could have ran the gamut of all these funny gimmicks on that TNT show, and you could have had, he could have came in under the guise of Uncle Elmer, and he could have hit his head or something, whatever silliness, He
could have struck it rich, like Jed Clampett, struck some oil, some Errol.
Next thing you know, he's Playboy Frazier up there. He could have been Kamala too if they needed him to. All that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, because like you said, it wasn't lost on him. He played into it. He did it well. And oh man, in that era of WWF, such a missed opportunity.
So anyway, this started before we even began the 85 year, which is just crazy that the Playboy is still feuding with the Batten twins on the undercard here. He says, ain't nobody gonna cut them locks off his hair. Half-bald Playboy saying that obviously tongue-in-cheek as Jimmy Hart shows off some brand new nuggets, Gene.
He is shaking the nuggets off right now, Randy.
Jimmy Hart showing off some brand new rings that he will gift Frazier if, and only if, he can beat the Batten twins tomorrow at the Mid-South Coliseum, to which Playboy responds, he would kill someone for those rings.
He is shaking the nuggets off right now, Randy.
He says he would kill Lance Russell for those rings. I'd kill somebody for those rings.
It was such a different time. Can you imagine?
No, everything's literal now. You can't say things like that anymore.
No, you couldn't even come close. That's so funny, though. I'd kill somebody. I'd kill Lance.
Do you know how many phone calls they would have had before this show ended?
Lord.
Oh, he said he killed somebody. I do believe he meant it.
He would have got brought downtown for questioning, and it would have been a whole scene.
Oh, could you imagine the mugshot of Playboy Frazier in this tuxedo? That would have been tremendous. But it was just hilarious. He said, I'd kill somebody for those rings. He's selling that shit hard, man.
You just wonder if he just said that of his own volition, or if Jimmy Hart's like, tell him you'll kill somebody, baby. Tell him.
Pretty good for someone who's just getting over being sick, Gene Jackson.
Hey, man, I've had something resembling the flu for almost a week, but I pulled my one Jimmy Hart out for the week, so hope it was worth it.
Well, hopefully we can save it up for next time because, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, we got some good stuff coming here for Jimmy before he disappears to New York City. But for now, business is about to pick up because after we hear from the Playboy, it's the Mid-American champion, Iron Mike Sharpe.
Oh, okay.
Iron Mike Sharpe wanders into the promo. Oh, okay, my turn. Okay.
He's got to be very apprehensive this week about what he says about this upcoming match.
Why does this guy get promo time? I don't know. It's insane. Mike Sharpe, I know Jamie Ward loves him, and I've seen a few other people. I just posted, I posted like 8,000 pictures on Facebook and Twitter recently from all different time periods and whatever. And I swear to you, I feel like the one that got the most response was Mike Sharpe versus Jimmy Powers, and I have no idea why, but so many people out there sending Mike Sharpe love.
They do. It's really amazing, how much love there is for Mike Sharpe and the kind of interaction he gets when you post stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just still baffled at the whole, now I know you got Jimmy Hart as your manager, but we want to hear from you out there now. Make sure you put some time on the mic, because bless his heart. I've been like, look, man, you got Jimmy, just sit this one out. You're good. Just sit there and rub that forearm pad and put it over, and you're good.
I never thought I'd see the day that Uncle Elmer could cut a better promo than someone, but just not a fan of Mike Sharpe on the mic anyway. I respected him in the ring. I don't know that I enjoyed every match he ever had, but it's just so funny we get this type of promo here from Mike Sharpe, the way he talks.
No, okay.
And then when he gets in the ring, it's arr, 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 just a completely different person. But here he is, and somehow still the Mid-American champion. He says Jimmy Valiant just can't beat him, as Mike Sharpe wants to know why Valiant is wearing a similar arm brace as of late. And then we get his next great line. He says, Jimmy, I am very upset about that.
He has no right. I have permission to wear this. I have an injured arm. Why does he have that on? He has no business having that on. Jimmy, I'm very upset about that. Why does he have that on his arm?
Once again, continuing to talk out his promos here. He's not cutting a promo at Jimmy Valiant. He's telling Jimmy Hart, he's wearing an arm brace like me, and I am very upset about that.
It's the most, aside from maybe Lanny Poffo, the most articulate Memphis Wrestling promos that ever took place. Like I said, he enunciates. Jimmy, I'm very upset about that.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Articulate, for sure. Articulate Mike Sharpe. Never thought that would go together, but here we are. As we continue on, another member of Jimmy Hart's first family, it's Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert going to join in on the interview here, referring to himself as the King Buster and the next Southern Heavyweight Champion. Eddie, he did the This Is Your Life segment, but he forgot the final chapter, Gene, on January 27th. Tomorrow, it's the end of the King. As Jimmy Hart points out, the car show is in town for absolutely no reason. He says they could have had Jimmy Valiant, but they wanted Jimmy Hart. He says 1985 is the year of the first family, baby.
Yeah, that's so random.
Gotta get over the car show.
The car show in the middle of his wrestling promo. We just got through talking about a Texas death match.
Right.
And don't forget the car show, baby.
And don't forget the car show, baby. Unbelievable.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
No, okay.
It's a car show. Oh, you're not booked. Oh, okay. I'm not booked. I'm very upset about that.
I understand they'll be showing automobiles down there at the car show convention. Is that true, Jimmy Hart?
I do believe they will all have 4 wheels, perhaps an engine. Iron Mike Sharpe tells us the obvious.
Of motor vehicles. It's my favorite mode of transportation, Jimmy.
I pictured him as a jogger.
No, okay.
Oh, man. Iron Mike Sharpe. Yeah, so Jimmy Hart, though, talking about putting over the car show, because he's going to be there, baby. They could have had Jimmy Valiant, but they wanted Jimmy Hart. As we go off to a missing children's piece. And yes, I looked this up, Gene. Siblings taken by their non-custodial mother. So, you know me, I had to Google the names. Best not to elaborate on what becomes of this brother and sister, by the way. Now, they do grow up, and they are found. They're safe and sound, but maybe their upbringing, the issues and such, leads to some poor choices, and I'll just leave it there. Do you remember, I mean, I know you weren't a big fan of this era. I don't think anybody was, but remember when the WWF, when they were really rock bottom there in the mid-'90s, they started bringing kids into the ring to do ring announcing and things like that, flag bearers and whatnot? Okay. When that started in 1993 and I was doing my 93 grenade, I said, you know what I'm going to do? It's a nice little addition to the shows besides my Virgils of the Week. I said, I'm going to look these people up and see what they're doing today. The first person, dead. The second person, like prison. Third person, dead, COVID 3 weeks ago. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. So this is what happens when you look up children's missing pieces. I should have known. So I think I'll just refrain from doing that moving forward.
So you're saying they'd have been better off missing if the
I don't know.
result?
I don't know.
Oh, my.
I don't know. So we continue on, though. Back to the action. Exotic Adrian Street with lovely Miss Linda out there taking on David Haskins. What is he, 3 weeks into the business now? As Adrian Street rocking a Union Jack cape and matching glitter face paint. I wrote, imagine waking up early enough for TV to paint and glitter up your face to that degree.
Well, I'll tell you what, Lance and Dave were certainly impressed with it because they put it over numerous times throughout the match, and that it matched his robe and all that. And it was impressive. I'll give you that. But it was just kind of funny to me, just with him being a heel, the fact that they brought it up 2 or 3 different times, almost as if maybe he prompted them to.
Yeah. Do you know how long this took? Make sure you guys put this over. Absolutely. We get going here. A little perfume spray down pre-match for Miss Linda on Adrian and a little skip to my Lou around the ring. But then it's right into some nasty hooking and twisting. And I think David Haskins wished they could go back to skip to my Lou at that point. As Lance Russell says, that's some handsome moves in there by Adrian Street. As Haskins finally going to fire back with punches plenty, even landing a drop kick, but he's going to miss a second one. And Street right back on top with a nasty European uppercut, some stiff shots, and then locks in a crucifix rolling back into a pin. Going to get the win 2 minutes and 28 seconds here for the exotic one.
Even as a kid, it wasn't lost on me how it would go from he's getting sprayed down with perfume and, he's skipping around and prancing. And then all of a sudden the bell rings. And like you said, it's just immediately into that. And I didn't know the difference between, stiff and working light right. and any of that. But you could tell there was something, just a vicious streak about Adrian, and what he was doing was a lot rougher than what you had seen anybody else on the show do.
Oh, yeah.
And I just loved that sudden switch that was flipped with Adrian, and he'd get them down, he'd rub their face in the mat, and he'd tie them in knots, and then he'd get up and he'd skip around the ring again. He'd prance and go over there and taunt the crowd, and then prance around and lock up again, and next thing you know, he's got them tied in knots, and you wanted him to be this sissy that was going to get just beat all over the ring, and it didn't happen. I mean, he knew how to play that part when it was time. He would be the chicken shit heel when he needed to be, but just the character was perfect. It really was.
Completely agree. Can't argue that. As we continue on, Lance Russell going to speak with Adrian Street and have Miss Linda by his side. A very winded Street here, really sucking wind for some reason after a 2.5 minute match, but he wants the ex-colonials in the crowd to show proper respect for the country that saved them from the French. As Street wants to talk about the Macho Man, the epitome of American manhood. Why Street has more manhood in his little finger than the Macho Man does in his entire body. As Adrian Street talks Randy Savage's Butch Weeder type body. I had to laugh there, Weeder. Joe Weeder, obviously the precursor to the WBF, which really took off there, Vince's competition. But I just love he called Savage Butch.
Yes.
So while Randy Savage looks more like Joe Weeder, Adrian Street says he trains with Richard Simmons himself. I wrote, what does that include? Some sweating of the oldies and a deal meal plan?
Yeah, I think that play was done to play into the whole
obviously
gimmick there. But that's fun that he even knew the reference, really. But Macho Man and the way he dressed to be referred to as Butch is fun. And I always heard people talk about old school heat and promos, but I don't know that they were necessarily talking about ex-colonials and
awesome,
like respect for the country that saved them from the French. That's a little too old school.
That is old school. Is what that
exactly.
I don't know about you, but I train with Richard Simmons. I can't wait till we get to Grunt the Wrestling movie. Adrian Street is just an awesome character. We're gonna go on for right now though. Tag team action. Going to see Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert and Iron Mike Sharpe.
Okay.
Okay. It's a tag team match. It's Mike Sharpe and Eddie Gilbert. Jimmy Hart in their corner, taking on the team of Ken Raper and Johnny Wilhoit. I love Eddie's neon green jacket for this matchup as Jimmy Hart going to join for commentary. Eddie Gilbert wisely avoiding a dropkick attempt by Wilhoit early on by exiting to the ring apron. Then Eddie unwisely turning his back to Johnny on that ring apron, and Wilhoit dropkicks Hot Stuff right off the apron and down to the studio floor. I loved how Eddie would get these spots and give them to these guys that, obviously underneath him, but he didn't mind doing that. And, obviously got himself over, get a pop from the fans at the same time.
He was very good about that throughout his career. And one thing you can say for Johnny Wilhoit, he was the Jim Brunzell or Brad Armstrong of the Memphis area on drop kicks. My
he had
goodness,
that drop
I've been
kick
paying
down.
attention to that, man. He nails those drop kicks, and they're usually right up on top of their head.
If he had one move, it was the drop kick for sure here. As Ken Raper going to tag in, and he's supposed to run the ropes here and catch a knee in the back from Mike Sharpe, who is all sorts of uncoordinated and late to the party. Mike completely misses Ken Raper.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was supposed to knee you.
So Raper sells it anyway and takes a bump down to the mat. I wrote, ugh.
Oh, bless his heart. I mean, you can tell that Mike's just not really used to being in this position where he's getting this much offense in, and it gets obvious week after week with these squash matches. And, you know, I'm got all the respect in the world for Iron Mike Sharpe, and I know, like you said, some of our friends and co-hosts have a great love for him, but I have been quoted as saying in the past that I always felt that if you've seen one Iron Mike Sharpe match, you've seen every Iron Mike Sharpe match. But that little spot right there was something special that kind of caught me off guard. But I was like, ooh, even by Mike Sharpe standards, that was tough.
Maybe if he grunted a little louder, everybody would have bought it. But it's just
yeah, they're like, well, the grunt scared him and knocked him down.
Well, it didn't work out that way. Unfortunately, we're live, pal. And Ken Raper takes the bump anyway. As Eddie Gilbert and Mike Sharpe then take turns working over Raper on the mat. Big high backdrop on Kenny by Eddie Gilbert. And then Eddie cleans the mat, says Lance Russell, with Raper's face, dragging his face across the mat. Lance Russell, he's cleaning the mat with his face. And then Dave Brown busts out Mike Sharpe is dancing on Raper's head as he stomps away. Dave Brown now coming up with a great line there. He's dancing on his head. I loved it. I didn't expect that out of Dave Brown.
Dave will surprise you every now and again.
He'll
drop one in.
As Jimmy Hart says, King Edward back in the ring with a double stomp as the heels just destroy Ken Raper in their corner forever. I wrote, come on, Jerry Calhoun, get him out of there. This is going on far too long. Finally, Mike Sharpe going to put us out of our misery, finally loading that forearm brace and blasting Ken Raper with a clothesline. The heel's going to get the win, 5 minutes and 21 seconds.
They put Will Hoyt in a lot of these squash matches, but they did good to protect him, and they usually always took the pin on the partner and let him get his drop kick in. But yeah, they usually took most of the heat on the partners. So good. Well, you want
to talk about protecting Will Hoyt post match? Johnny Will Hoyt comes into the ring to check on his partner Ken Raper, but the heels then corner Will Hoyt, and he appears to be in big trouble when, whoo mercy, it's the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant out here. Jimbo hits the ring, followed by the King for a little backup. But it's Jimmy Valiant running in and knocking Mike Sharpe out with Valiant's own forearm brace. So Sharpe laid out outside on the studio floor, getting a little taste of his own medicine.
You don't mess with Johnny Willie Hoyt, baby. That's our boy. That's our boy.
Apparently so. Is Lance Russell going to have a word with Handsome Jimmy? He says he's a heat-seeking missile going off tomorrow in the Mid-South Coliseum, going to explode all over Mike Sharpe. I don't know if I really cared for that line. Anyway, so you can tell Jerry Lawler's booking.
A lot of showering after that one.
A lot of showering.
Oh, okay. Oh, a bath? Oh, it's not a shower. It's a bath. Oh, okay.
Oh, man. You can tell Jerry Lawler's booking because he is not going anywhere near Mike Sharpe here in matches or in these storylines, just kind of standing there. But sabotaging poor Jimmy Valiant, it would seem.
Yeah, Jimmy's taking the bullet on that one. But then again, not everybody was thrilled to work with Jimmy Valiant. So I guess maybe Lawler was like, all right, we'll pair them up and nobody has to deal with them.
Yeah, I know the old story. Tully pissed off Dusty, and the first thing Dusty did was book Tully in a feud with Jimmy Valiant.
Yep. I'll show you, baby.
So speaking of the King and his booking and whatnot, here's Jerry Lawler out next for a promo. He talks the upcoming Gold World Cup Tag Team Tournament of Japan, not real guys. Him and Jimmy Valiant heading to All Japan, which is true, as Lawler jokes that Jimmy can have the trophy as long as the King can have the $100,000 at stake. And then from there we get the same old pack a lunch, I can throw fire promo for the upcoming Texas Death Match. Same promo we got last week, which really surprised me. It's such a huge matchup. We've had this feud going on with Eddie Gilbert, and Lawler just kind of phones it in here.
Yeah, I mean, he's so known for his promos and changing things up. And, you know, you can watch 100 of those local promos, and they're usually always different. But, yeah, right. He just pulled out that stock line from last week. And but I did get tickled at the Gold World Cup tag tournament. Like, boy, we stayed up late coming up with that name. Jeez.
They'll talk about that a little bit more here on the Lawler Show. Can't wait till we get there. But I just wrote kind of lackluster, but there was just no emotion behind it either. Lawler's just out there kind of, and you could blame a lot of the other wrestlers. Well, they're probably, the jokes I like to tell on George all the time is, well, they're probably hungover. Well, I don't know if that's much of a joke, but maybe they're still drunk, maybe they're still up from yesterday. But Jerry Lawler was like straight edge, so that wasn't even the case here. Unless he just had too much Coca-Cola, and he was just, I don't really know what the story is here, but the King just seems like
girl in the crowd or something.
Mate, woman.
Lady.
Let's call her a woman.
Lady.
Let's call her
of age.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There you go. Thank you. As we continue on here, Jerry Lawler talking a little bit. I'm not.
Damn it.
Perhaps we'll see. As we continue on here, 6-man tag team action. If I don't leave that in, people are going to wonder why we're laughing. We got the.
Oh, I'm good with it. Trust me.
It's the Dirty White Boys and Rock and Roll Buck Zumhoff taking on the trio. Oh, listen to this one: Kevin Kelly, the future Nails, Danny Hager, and Big Lou Winston here. And the future Nails, with impressive size, really sticks out in these 6-man tag team here. But super green still, as the heels, however, get shitty Zumhoff in their corner briefly. Kevin Kelly, all sorts of not cooperating. I don't know if you noticed this, because I watched this twice, and the first time I guess I really wasn't paying attention. But the second time, I was like, what is he doing? He keeps trying to double leg the Dirty White Boys, take them down, but they block it. And then in turn, Kelly refusing to let the Dirty White Boys get in a body slam. Every time they try to lift him, he's literally like kind of sitting out on them. So the White Boys finally going to try to take him down. Kelly forced a tag to Hager. They actually work him over to his corner and make him tag out. Of course, Hager far more cooperative here, as is Lou Winston. And the Dirty White Boys on the offense on Winston win. The show cuts out. The dreaded blue screen o-doom. And we're into a commercial break. Next thing we see here. So we get about 3 minutes, but the finish is missing. You got to imagine the baby faces went over here. But I wrote, I don't know what the fuck Kelly was doing in there. I don't know what he thought he was going to accomplish. But I'm very curious to see how much longer he sticks around after this.
Yeah, I jokingly dubbed that team the Memphis Freebirds when I first saw Kelly Hager and Lou Winston there in the corner. But yeah, Kevin Kelly never was a great one, but boy, he was really not great here in Memphis at this stage. But yeah, that was a cluster. I almost felt like if he had not managed to tag out, I would have thought I willed that blue screen to happen with my mind, because I was like, do something to get him out of here. What the fuck are we doing? And then luckily Lou Winston came in, but then it went off.
Well, obviously the baby faces were in there to get over, and Kevin Kelly had other ideas. He didn't want to sell for them, and then he, tried to do it. They weren't going to sell for him. And then, it was just kind of a stalemate till they forced him to the corner. They knew they were live on TV. We had to do something. So obviously the veterans on the other side, they get him over to his corner, and Hager comes in, and we kind of have a match that resembles a regular wrestling match at that point, but we don't get a whole lot of it. Obviously, I'm sure the babies went over there. Just really odd, and I'm really curious to see how much longer Nails sticks around here. As we continue on, well, boy, this guy makes Nails look like Ricky Steamboat, these two. It's Jimmy Hart with his Terminators. The Terminators are back here in the Memphis territory. Well, we should have known, being Terminators and all, that they'd be back. As Jimmy Hart says, from now on, wherever he goes, they go. Well, except the WWF.
Yeah.
Jimmy says he's done with all other tag teams. Well, except the Hart Foundation and the Rougeau Brothers, Rhythm and Blues, Nasty Boys, Natural Disasters, Money Incorporated, Mega Maniacs. I guess you can include Earthquake and Dino Bravo. And that's just the WWF, but he's done with all other teams beside the Terminators.
Well, I mean, I would probably swear off tag teams too if I ended up managing the Terminators.
Swear off all
these
tag
guys
teams,
look like they would have just been your run-of-the-mill jobber tag team.
Yeah.
They should have just been getting plowed through. You could make a bigger case for using Lou Winston and Hager in this position and letting the Terminators do the jobs. I don't get it. I do not get it. But.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, because I have not watched this era in so long that I really just, maybe I had a different opinion on what they looked like or whatever until I saw this, and I'm right there with you. I don't see anything special that makes me want to have to push these guys, give them the name Terminators for one, and then push these guys to the moon, like to the top of the tag team division. Obviously, they were here at the end of last year, and they're back now. This is the original Terminators, by the way, guys. This is Riggs and Crow. I think Crow goes to prison. Imagine that. And then Wolf will come in and replace him later on. Not that, I don't know that there's a whole big of a difference, but now we have to watch them wrestle.
Well, if he went to prison for being a great wrestler, they
convicted
an innocent man.
They sure did.
There shouldn't have been any proof of any footage I've ever seen to prove it, because good Lord.
Well, certainly not this footage as we head to the ring for an expiration of time matchup. It's the Terminators with Jimmy Hart taking on Mark and Brad Batten as the Nators, as I refer to them here. They attack the Battens. The Battens can't even get their jackets off as Jimmy Hart going to join commentary briefly. One of the Terminators whips an opponent into the other's clothesline, as I thought I heard Jimmy Hart initially refer to it as a Tommy Kanger. I said, what the fuck is a Tommy Kanger? We'll continue on with this as the match goes on. Jimmy Hart going to cover for his team sucking on offense here. He says they don't do wrestling moves because they don't need to learn wrestling moves, baby.
I mean, that is the bare minimum. I don't know how else to cover this, so I'm going to kind of shoot on the square here. I mean, short of saying, that's because they don't know how to wrestle, baby. And this is the most offense they've ever got to do.
Fuck this shit. I'm off to New York. These guys fucking suck. That would have been awesome if you gave me some of that shit. You guys can't fire me.
Anywhere I go, they're going with me, baby. Vince is like, no.
Pal.
They're not even jobbing up here, pal.
No, they can't even. Yeah, they wouldn't even make the job squad up there. So, anywho, now remember, we go back to their new move they invented here. I say invented. It's actually the atomic hanger. We'll get a little bit more into that later in the matchup. But so their finisher is whipping a job guy into the other Terminator's clothesline. And it's not like a Stan Hansen clothesline. It's just a clothesline at best, if you want to call it that.
He held his arm out and that guy ran into it. You know, if that qualifies as a clothesline, then yes, that's as far as it goes. But yeah, atomic hanger.
As the match continues on, about 50% of the offense is clotheslines. So I'm really confused here. Lots of punching, lots of clotheslines. And then they try a second, what I keep hearing Jimmy Hart call a Tommy Kanger at this point. But one of the Battens duck, and the other Terminator clotheslines his own partner. So I guess he did his own finisher on his own partner. And we get the hot tag out to the other Batten twin, breaking down into a four-way melee. Stereo drop kicks by the Battens, but the Terminators, they bounce back with stereo, you guessed it, clotheslines. What else? And the match goes 3 minutes and 5 seconds as Lance Russell corrects Jimmy Hart, or at least I can understand Lance better than Jimmy here. He calls it a double atomic hanger. I said, oh, is that what Jimmy's been saying all match? Lance says it's actually just a couple of clotheslines. I love the fact that he fucking buried these guys. Complete shit. I wrote terrible. Can't wait for them to be hasta la vista, baby.
And his voice implied that the missing word from that sentence was just a couple of shitty clotheslines, because that's the way he said it. Like, if he could get away with it on TV, there's just a couple of shitty clotheslines in there.
It was great.
Good Lord, Davey.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to go watch that. It's hilarious because they're doing clotheslines the entire match, but the ones at the end, those were the real ones, right? And as they hit them, it's a double atomic hanger. And then Lance Russell's just like, just a couple of clotheslines. I was like, wow, way to bury him, Lance. Even Lance was disgusted with this.
I have to imagine Lance came through the curtain at the next break and was like, where the fuck did you find these guys, Lawler? What are we doing? Like, come on. And I assume the Battens, when they sat down to call this match, was like, all right, well, what can you guys do? Well, we can punch. And he looks at the other guy and he's like, well, I could do a clothesline. And we just filled in every spot in the match with either a punch or a clothesline. I mean, it's like they watched the Jim Hellwick greatest hits of 1985
You ever walk
these
into...
two made the damn Blade Runners look like superstars.
I was gonna. Did you ever walk into an indie locker room and you get those green, maybe half trained guys that they're like, oh, and what's your move? And then they actually give you some nonsensical name rather than telling you, oh, well, what is that? Oh, it's a power bomb.
God, yes.
Okay. Well, could you imagine here the Batten's like, all right, what do you guys do? We do the atomic hanger. Okay, what's that? Clothesline. I could picture that conversation right now.
Like you've done 19 clotheslines in the rest of the match. Yeah, but this is atomic.
This is the atomic hanger, bitch.
All
just
right,
a clothesline.
That double atomic hanger, as they call it.
They use just really, Jimmy calls it an atomic hanger. Just a couple of clotheslines out there.
We close out the program here. There's only one fall, thank God, expiration of time. Sometimes we get 2 or 3 falls. Thank God it was only one here. More clotheslines I could do without. As we get a Jerry Lawler promo to close the show, and I have to wonder, maybe Jerry ad-libbed. He's like, we ain't putting that on again. As we get an update here on the fathers of Stan Lane and Steve Keirn, he says, Wally Lane is okay, but Dick Keirn's hip, he's hurting him from the bump that he took across the studio floor, and I don't doubt that. Now, reportedly, the King says they're on their way to the airport. So I wrote, wait, they flew in to watch an episode of Studio Wrestling that their sons aren't even on, and then they just leave? They can't even stick around for the fucking Coliseum tomorrow?
And they missed the Terminator match? Like, damn it. I'm sure that's who they came to see, Like, we were just here to see the Terminators, and then we ended up having to go to the hospital. Or no, they didn't go to the hospital. They went straight to the airport. I'm sorry, but nothing about that whole scenario, mate. Yeah. If anybody took 2 seconds to think about it, they're like, wait, why were they here?
Well, and then we get it, Gene, for the second time in the same episode. Jerry Lawler says that if that had been my father, I'd have killed them. He would have killed the interns. Man, 2 times on the same show, 2 murder threats made. I couldn't believe it here.
Again, that's one of those things. I mean, I get it from Frazier. He's a simpleton from, Philadelphia, Mississippi, for real. But like for Lawler, as I was watching this, I thought, okay, Lawler. So even if the Fabs come in Monday night and win the Southern Tag Team titles, and everyone's mind who just heard you say that are like, yeah, but there's still a couple of pussies because they didn't kill them. Lawler would have killed them.
That's very interesting. Some of the choice words that were made this week on Championship Wrestling, guys. As we continue on January 26th, they were off to Jonesboro, Arkansas. Now, we don't have results, but I like to keep everybody in the loop to see where everybody was at. As we head off to Sunday morning and the Jerry Lawler Show, January the 27th, and in-studio guest, oh man, it's handsome Jimmy Valiant. And I have a couple of sound bites here. We'll get to those in just a minute. But I just wanted to talk about this because he brings Jimmy onto the show because tomorrow morning, Monday morning, Lawler and Valiant are leaving for Japan in what Lawler calls the Gold World Cup Tournament. And I wrote, it's a little late for that. The real world tournament took place at the end of last year, King, so there's no tournament to be had. But he says they won some kind of big tournament here in the Mid-South region in order to represent the territory. However, they don't have any footage. I said, wouldn't you know it? Because it doesn't exist, guys, for anybody looking for it. But instead, it's we get a Lawler and Jimmy Valiant music video set to the Stray Cats Rock This Town. Now, in reality, they're only in Japan for like a week. They win like 2 of 7 matches, losing to the likes of Masa Saito, Killer Khan, Great Kabuki, Animal Hamaguchi. But I'm sure when they get back, they'll tell a different story.
Of course, man, of course. So I can only assume that the reason we had a special day, like instead of the Monday night card, we had a Sunday card, was because Lawler and Valiant were leaving out for Japan Monday. I'm just speculating, but that seems reasonable.
It is reasonable, and I didn't come to that conclusion, but only because this is like the 3rd time this month that they've ran a Mid-South show on a Sunday. And I'm really not sure why. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's going on at this point in time.
But I also found it funny, and you kind of brought this up earlier, right after the Lawler promo, but it's like Lance and Lawler both spend the bulk of that promo talking about, they won the Gold World Cup opportunity in this, like you say, this mystery tournament, and they're flying out to go to Japan, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh yeah, and tomorrow I'm going to wrestle Eddie Gilbert in Texas Death Match, and it was kind of an afterthought, like, okay, that's the one you're trying to sell tickets to. That's the one you stand to make money on. Nobody in Memphis is flying to Japan. Who gives a shit? Like, push your match tomorrow. But that was an afterthought. After, we're going to Japan. It's a big freaking deal. We won a tournament. Oh yeah, and Eddie Gilbert, we're going to have that match we didn't have last week. And blah blah. Whatever I said last time, double that this time.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because nobody in Memphis is going to Japan, and nobody in Japan is seeing this promo here. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But as you were breaking that down, I started thinking, well, but you look big time, right, when you're going to Japan for a Gold World Cup tournament. So let's put something over that's not even true just to get yourself over, more so than this matchup with Eddie Gilbert. And it's unfortunate, too, because it really started off hot, really fun there with the This Is Your Life segment. And I'm sure the barbed wire match was good and all this other stuff in between. But we'll see what happens when we get there. First, we got to get through the Lawler show. And I'm going to cue up right now the first of a couple sound bites here with Jimmy Valiant. Jimmy Valiant about to talk about his ability to speak multiple languages, Gene, and his trip to San Francisco. We'll be back on the other side.
There we are, and here we are. Handsome Jimmy Valiant. How did we look?
Woo! Let's see. Domo Abagato, Mizu, Banjo, and Sukiyaki. You didn't know I could talk Japanese, did you?
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, we're going to be in good shape.
We're all right, huh?
Hey, you know I could talk Mexican, too. You didn't know that?
No, let me
hear. Yeah, listen to this little Mexican talk. Taco, tamale, and enchilada.
That's all right.
And I talk 5 different languages in Greek. The only language I can't talk is Greek.
Greek, huh? Can't speak Greek.
Woo!
So you're going to be able to get us by the language barrier in Japan.
Oh, hey, and I know a little bar in Sapporo, you know, with the little geisha girls, you know.
Geisha girls?
Hey, hey, we're going to go to them hot baths, you know. Yeah, community baths, you know. They got the broads there with us, you know, and the guys there. Hey,
wait a minute now.
Yeah, where do we start out now? We go straight to Frisco or we go to Alaska?
I don't know. We have the tickets right here. The tickets have come in.
Give me the ticket.
Let me see your passport picture.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Come on, let me see.
My age ain't on here, is it?
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm 29, that's right, yeah.
Ooh, what a picture.
Good,
yeah, that's great. Okay, we got the passports already.
Yeah.
We're going to leave Monday morning.
Yeah, where do we go now? You didn't tell me because
it's on here. We go Monday morning. We leave Monday morning, 7:29. Can you get up at 7:29? No, we don't get to go
I ain't going to bed Saturday night. Was that Saturday night?
No, we're going to leave Monday morning.
Monday, yeah, I ain't going to bed Saturday night or Sunday night. Yeah. You know, oh, here, it says right here, it says we go to Frisco first.
Yeah, San Francisco.
Straight to Frisco.
Right, yeah.
You know, I was in Frisco 3 weeks ago, Kingfish.
You were?
And, yeah, you know, in Frisco, you know, that's a little funny city. Frisco is where the men are women and the women are women, you know. And I was in this little place, you know, little gay bar. No, it was I guess it was a gay bar. No, it wasn't gay. What it was a female impersonating bar, see. I don't know if there's gay bar or what, but, you know, regular people go. You know, I'm regular people. So I go in there, and, hey, Fish, I meant to tell you this earlier, you know. A guy, I guess it's a guy or girl. Anyway, some dancer was up there dancing, and it looked just like Jimmy the Snake Hot. Now, you don't think, hey, he's not a little funny.
I don't know.
No, you
I don't know. Wait a minute.
He had a mustache and everything.
Let's change the subject. I don't know where I lost control of this, but we're supposed to be talking about our trip to Japan.
Wow, so much to touch on there, that 2-minute soundbite from Jimmy Valiant. All sorts of things going to get you thrown off the air today, that's for sure. He can speak Japanese, banjo, sukiyaki. He can talk Mexican, too. Not Spanish, but rather Mexican. Talking about going over to Japan with the hot baths with the broads, the geisha girls. He says he ain't going to bed Saturday night, which is kind of funny because Saturday night is already passed at this point. Jimmy Valiant not even sure what day of the week it was. And then, of course, that entire conversation about San Francisco, where the women are women and the men are women, is strolled to the gay bar. Oh, my God, Jimmy Valiant.
Oh, bless his heart. Jimmy couldn't get away with, I mean, there might have been 2 lines out of that entire 2-minute promo you played that he could say today and get away with.
Jerry Lawler, man, he saw where this was going and he tried to get it. He's like, well, they went off the track somewhere. Jerry Lawler steers it back on after that to the best of his ability anyway. It doesn't get a whole lot better. Well, it doesn't get any worse than that, that's for sure, as they continue on. And they go into Jimmy Valiant's match here later at the Coliseum. Jimmy Valiant going to take on Iron Mike Sharpe.
Oh, okay.
And right now we're going to hear what Handsome Jimbo has to say about his opponent, the sharp-dressed man.
You know, a big match right down at the Coliseum at 3 o'clock today, you know.
Yes, sir, baby.
You got the Mike Sharpe, Iron Mike Sharpe. Have you still got your...
Do I? Brother? Hey, this is a sharp-dressed man, you know, understand, you know. And I want to tell you something, Kingfish, to all my brothers and sisters, all my street people, the boogeyman, Handsome Jimmy, we're going to take care of sharp-dressed. I mean, today, Daddy, just hours away. I am keyed in. My gift for it, baby. You know, the man is a filthy, filthy man. I know he doesn't shower yet. He's got a little B.O., you don't understand that. I hate to do this, Jack, but I'm going to do it one time, and it's going to be all for Mr. Sharpe. Hours away. I'm get up for you, Sharpe, man, and it's going to be all over right there, Coliseum, 3 o'clock time, Jack. It's me and you.
Valiant continuing to rib Iron Mike Sharpe here, calling him Mr. Dirty. Everybody who knows anything about Mike Sharpe knows that he is anything but that.
That's so funny. I guess that's such an inside baseball thing to do that only the other workers and people that know him would know what that's referencing. And you know it's probably pissing Sharpe off, you know. Don't tell people that
I don't smell.
that I'm not fragrant. I have a very pleasant scent, Jimmy.
Tell them, Jimmy. Oh, man. Iron Mike, Sharpe, Jimmy Valiant coming up here in just a little bit, but they're not done talking yet, and I don't have any more sound bites, sadly, of Jimmy Valiant here, but the conversation continues. As Jerry Lawler begins to mention some of the cities they're going to see in Japan, Jimmy Valiant replies, "Hey, what city did we bomb?" Then he references nuking Russia while he's in Japan. I wrote, "Holy shit."
Oh, my God. I'm sure Lawler's like, "Oh, my God, we're never having you on here again. This is a nightmare."
Yeah, Jerry Lawler's like, "Oh, we're going to Sapporo and Tokyo. Hey, what city did we bomb?" Oh, my God. "Hey, while we're there, maybe I'll nuke Russia." I'm like, what the hell are you doing, man? Jesus Christ. Even in 1985, as Lawler reiterates that at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, the flight begins to San Francisco. Jimmy says he'll be up because he won't sleep Saturday or Sunday. We heard a little bit of that already. Of course, Saturday was last night, so woo mercy, whatever Jimmy Valiant was doing here. Valiant receives, just like the Dirty White Boys, dinner for two at Overton Square. TGI Fridays. Maybe you'll see the Dirty White Boys there. Who knows? I said, that's not fair, though. The Dirty White Boys had to split the gift cards. Jimmy Valiant gets two for himself. Not cool. And, of course, he gets a year-long trip to, Peabody's Health Club. Gets to work out there, boogie woogie. Maybe he'll be there with the Mr. Dirty, getting dirty. You know what I'm talking about, baby.
Well, that's why those tag teams always end up turning on each other because of things like that. They get tired of splitting the gift cards.
I'm sick of splitting the TGI Fridays gift cards. I can't afford a beer and a mozzarella stick on this gift card.
And that's how you end up with your head through the barbershop window.
So, yeah, there you go. That explains a whole lot that was never elaborated on TV. Because Marty Jannetty got that booth there right after that because, he was Party Marty. As we continue on, we go off to viewer mail as a kid by the name of Randy Simpson writes into Queen Lawler. Let's see how the mature, grown king responds to this youngster.
And it's time for our viewer mail segment. And our letter this week comes from a kid by the name of Randy Simpson here in Memphis, Tennessee. And it says, "Dear Queen Lawler, my favorite tag team is the Road Warriors, and I want to know when they're coming back to Memphis and if you are afraid to wrestle them or not." Well, Randy, you ignorant little wimp. Let me just say this about that. No, I'm not afraid to wrestle the Road Warriors, and I have an open contract. Would be glad to face them at any time.
Wow. Randy, you ignorant little wimp. This is how he's talking to this is a baby face. Could you imagine? Well, let me tell you something, brothers. Randy Simpson, you ignorant little wimp, dude.
Let me tell you something, you little douchebag. Hulkster's going to come down there. I'm surprised Lawler didn't say, "I'll come steal your girlfriend right now, you little punk." Oh, my bad.
Oh, mercy. Catching up with Jimmy. Speaking of Jimmy Valiant, getting people thrown off the air. So Randy's favorite team is the Road Warriors. Wants to know when they'll be back in the Memphis territory and if Lawler has the guts to take them on. Lawler mentions this was a kid, remember, as he calls him an ignorant little wimp. We go off now. Lawler just happens to have a promo queued up with Paul Ellering and the Road Warriors. Imagine that.
And they sent some cameras out to talk to Ellering and the Road Warriors, and I think that they claim to be excited about facing me. Well, let's listen right now to see what the Road Warriors have to say about this challenge.
Jerry, and I see you're still sitting in your easy chair, taking it easy. Well, you better take it easy, Lawler, because if you ever get into the ring with these two men, if you ever have the guts to sign the contract that says, "Beware, enter the ring at your own risk, danger," if you ever have that kind of guts, Lawler, just sign the contract, because we're not going anywhere. We're still right here, and we're still waiting for you, Tomahawk.
We didn't get these world championship belts pushing baby buggies around. What am I doing on this stinking show? What are we doing on this stinking show? Lawler, are you retired or something now? Why don't you get your tights on and do a little more than talking and climb in the ring? You're too smart. You don't want to. Tell him that. Come on, Lawler! I thought you were supposed to be so bad! Pulling off your strap, and the people go crazy. You know what we think of that?
That's what we think of that. We don't think nothing. Why don't you get yourself a partner and challenge the Warriors? That's right. You know, there's not a lot you can count on, but count on this. When the Legion of Doom comes to Memphis, you're never going to see anything like it in your whole life. You're going down, Lawler.
Okay, those are the Road Warriors with Paul Ellering. And Randy, you little goof, we have a T-shirt for you. Even though you are a wimp, we're going to send this out, and you can wear this and try to be a man. All right?
The roadies responding to Jerry Lawler. They welcome the opportunity to get in the ring with him. Drop the strap, Lawler. You know what they think of that? Or whatever the hell kind of noise Animal made there.
That's what we think of that.
And Randy the little goofy gets a King Lawler shirt to boot.
Well, if I was that little goof Randy, I would think it was super cool that my favorite tag team cut a promo on Lawler based off of my letter that I wrote in theory anyway. So
right.
Pretty
theory,
cool.
I was going to say, how long do you think Lawler was sitting on that letter before he read it? How long it took him to get the roadies to cut a promo real quick for him?
It's so funny that, like you said, for a baby face to shit all over a little kid. Even though he did write a letter about it.
Imagine how many times he read this letter. Now, we all know that he does not read these letters for the first time here on the segment.
No.
But when he opens up the segment, when it starts and it says, Dear Queen Lawler, Jerry, he's literally, it felt so real. He goes, huh.
Dear Queen Lawler.
Like he was just like, seriously, huh? So he's just been sitting on this for who knows how long, and it's still eating at him. How dare this kid?
He's like, I'm going to embarrass this little shit right on TV. I'm going to call him a wimp and question his manhood. And it's like, years later, the WWF has this Be a Star campaign and don't bully people. Lawler bullying some little kid on Memphis TV in 1985.
Well, if I was Randy Simpson, I'd have been going to school. Did you hear him talk about me? Yeah, he called. Well, I don't care what he called me. I hope he still has that shirt and sold it on eBay. As we continue on. Jerry Lawler, he begins showing off some type of a weird pro wrestling game that I wasn't even familiar with. But it's at this point I noticed that his hand and the papers in his hand are disappearing behind the supposed TV screen that he talks to on the wall. And I wrote, well, I'll be damned. That's a superimposed video screen. There's no TV on the wall. Next thing you'll tell me is that Gorilla and Bobby were staring at a blank wall on primetime too.
Oh my God. What, do you think there's a chance these matches might be fixed?
Rigged wrestling? I don't think so. As we continue on, though, it's time for the bad guys segment. Lawler giving equal play to both sides. We heard from Jimmy Valiant. Now it's off to the Adrian Street on the quote-unquote video wall. Of course, we know that's no longer real. But Randy Savage looking for Adrian Street later today at the Mid-South Coliseum, and Street says he's easy to find. Macho Man is the epitome of American manhood. Street asks, why is he so butch? His voice sounds like his throat has been sandpapered. I loved it.
Well, good call, Adrian. I mean, that's a pretty accurate depiction of Randy's voice, that's for sure.
As the King says, Adrian Street likes to kiss his opponents, while Macho Man has the kiss of death waiting, says Lawler. I wrote, very entertaining show this week. Has this been Jimmy Valiant, and of course, this and even the viewer mail segment this week.
Yeah. It was. We come out. I mean, usually, it has its moments, but we come out of the gate strong and pretty much delivered all the way through.
I didn't know how they were going to follow up Jimmy Valiant, but they're not doing a bad job by any means. As we continue on, Lawler encouraging everybody to call the wrestling hotline, 685-6969. I encourage you guys not to call that number, but if you do, let us know what happens. Up next, it's Gene Dixon as the car show is in town. Gene Dixon, the show director of the 11th Annual International Car Show at the Cook Convention Center. And there they're going to have the Fall Guy truck, Kit from Knight Rider, General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard, and the A-Team van. And even Mr. T will be there. No, wait, that's just a Mr. T lookalike. It's apparently Tom Hardy, I can't believe this is a thing, the National Mr. T lookalike contest winner. Although they do point out he's bigger than Mr. T.
Holy shit. I'd have been so there for that. Every bit of that. The Fall Guy truck, the A-Team van, General Lee, all that. And then a dude that looked like Mr. T, but even bigger. Oh, yeah. Try to stop me from going if I was in Memphis.
Man, I don't know if it was Memphis or because it was just 1985, but by 1990, man, they were killing it with the car show here in Cleveland. I mean, it was like Ian Ziering from 90210, Mario Lopez from Saved by the Bell, AC Slater. It's like the Swedish Bikini Team. And then, we got a Mr. T lookalike here back in 85 Memphis. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they need a new show director.
Perhaps. That might have been Gene Dixon's last card show after that one.
True to his word, Jimmy Hart will indeed be there. Several wrestlers going to be there next weekend at the car show, including Johnny Wilhoit in the morning. Also, the Batten twins, Jimmy Hart and the Macho Man. One of these things is not like, well, I guess two, Jimmy Hart and Macho, but it's like, well, we kick things off with Wilhoit, so nobody's there. The Battens then follow him. Of course, that means, maybe a few more people are there. And then it's finally Jimmy Hart and the Macho Man. That must be prime time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that was years and years before the Lonely Virgil picture was taken at a wrestling convention. Johnny Wilhoit's line probably looked much the same.
Oh, if only can't. Who are you? I'm the guy that does those drop kicks. Oh, and then you lose. Yeah, I lose. Okay.
Well, my partner usually does, but I'm in it too.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, you don't lose. Your partner does? Oh, okay.
As we continue on, 3 p.m. special start time here on Sunday, January 27th at the Mid-South Coliseum. Remember, special price attendance, reportedly 5,000 fans here for 10 big matches, including Tojo Yamamoto and Johnny Wilhoit. Wilhoit here subbing for Steve Kyle, who was announced, but much like Steve-O, decided not to show up. So it's Wilhoit and Yamamoto over Danny Hager and Joe Lightfoot. Rock and Roll Buck Zumhoff battling Lanny Poffo to a 10-minute time limit draw. Sadly, 8 minutes of that will air on TV. Then Johnny Wilhoit. And more action, it's Wilhoit over Kevin Kelly. So I guess that's what happens to Nails after he refuses to take a bump on TV.
That's right. Next time you'll take that body slam, buddy.
Well, here it is, the big matchup. Uncle Elmer's hair at stake. Playboy Frazier taking on the $500 of the Batten twins. And it is Frazier getting his money back, defeating both Mark and Brad Batten. We continue on. The Daydreamers. Constance and Ashley under those hoods. Well, that's what we're told anyway. As they defeat the Nightmares by disqualification when Danny Davis blatantly choking out one of the Daydreamers with a rope thrown in the ring from Jimmy Hart. Match goes 7 minutes. It's on the Arena show. I wrote, wait, didn't Jimmy Hart just say on TV that he was done with all other tag teams? What's up with that, Jimmy?
I lied, baby.
Well, 2 words for you. I lied. Well, you said baby. Okay, 3 words. Sorry, guys. As we continue on with
That's
the
just
night.
like a period for him. It doesn't count.
That's true. Oh, man. Here we go. Macho Man Randy Savage battling exotic Adrian Street to a no contest. The Dirty White Boys defeating the Terminators by disqualification. Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant over the Mid-American champion Iron Mike Sharpe by disqualification. And I'm over with this feud, by the way, this Valiant Mike Sharpe thing. I've seen enough of this.
Do you think you are? You imagine these people that had to sit through a few of these. Oh, okay.
Okay. We drew 5,000. Would have been 6 if I wasn't on the card. Oh, okay.
Jesus, look at...
Yeah, I know. We'll get to it at the end. Up next, it's the big one, the Southern title. Southern heavyweight champion, Texas Deathmatch, Jerry Lawler, battling hot stuff Eddie Gilbert to a no contest. I hope that this match is on one of these arena shows. I want to see how a Texas Deathmatch goes to a no contest only in Memphis. And worse yet, the Southern title is held up. Didn't we just see this with the tag belts? Unbelievable.
Are we trying to kill the freaking town? What the hell are we doing?
We're not even done yet.
Contest, DQs and no contests in a row, and then you have a freaking Texas death match go to a no contest where titles are held up and the tag team titles? Like, how the fuck do you do that in the same card?
Yeah, double main event. Gilbert and Lawler, the Texas death match, no contest. And the main event, the other main event, the Fabs go to a no contest with the Interns as well. So we have 10 matches, 7 of them non-finishes. The other 3, just prelim matches.
Dirty White Boys couldn't even beat the fucking Terminators. They'd go over by DQ. I mean, that's when it's time to leave the territory. If they won't put you over the freaking Terminators after you've just laid down for the Interns every which way, fuck a bunch of that.
Yeah. No kidding. So I looked at this, and I came to an epiphany, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm not defending this booking by any means because I do not like this booking at all, but I'm wondering, and I feel like Jerry Lawler has the book right now, but I also could be wrong there. no matter who has the book. I'm wondering, we see so many shows being canceled right now all over the territory. Is this just a matter of, let's just do what we can get away with until this weather passes, do you think?
I mean, it's possible, but I can't understand. I mean, I understand maybe the main, or even the last two, but why would you have non-finishes up and down the freaking card? I mean, some of these matches, just give the fans a fucking finish, because what does it matter? I mean, bullshit finish with the Daydreamers? I mean, you could have just had them just win. They've lost how many times now?
Right.
A draw with Buck Zumhoff and Lanny freaking Poffo?
Yeah,
I'm surprised
you
Johnny
figure when
Lawler
you know the final 6 matches on your card are all going to end in disqualification or a no contest, you think you'd at least put Lanny Poffo over Buck Zumhoff on the undercard. It's really weird booking.
It's so weird. Yeah, I don't even know how to defend it. I feel like each week people are like, boy, well, I don't understand why y'all love this Memphis stuff so much. All these years I've heard about all the great booking in Memphis, and they can't book a fucking clean finish to save their life.
No, it's a pretty rough moment. That's why I said at the beginning of the show, I can't wait till we get out of the winter here and things kind of pick up, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I promise all of you guys out there, we're doing our damnedest with what we got to work with right now. We're having some fun.
It is, but man, when you book a Texas death match with a no contest and hold the title up at the end of a Texas death match, then why did you have it? Have a match that lends itself to a non-finish then, It's it's 2024 and I'm sitting here angry. I didn't even buy a ticket to this, but I'm so fucking annoyed right now. It's
Well, I sit here and I look at all of these, non-finishes, whatever schmozzes, as Bret Hart would call them, but I'm looking at all of this, and it's just weird. Now, if that is the only thing they do on the show that ends in a DQ, no contest or whatever, I'm less angry. If they hadn't already just stripped the tag titles from the interns and we got that whole big-ass tournament, I'd be even less angry, But with all of that and all of this, and then you give us this, and then another title's held up, it's just unbelievable.
I just remember being a kid, when my dad would take me and my buddies to Columbus to the Continental shows or Tupelo to the Memphis house shows, and us all talking in the car about the card and what was good, what we liked and what we didn't like and what we'd want to see the next time. I just can't imagine you piling in the car going home and being like, okay, wait a minute, that one was DQ, that sucked. We didn't see anything tonight. We saw a bunch of bullshit tonight.
Well, that's what you get for $4, $5, $6, and $1, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah, at least you didn't spend much on it. There's that anyway.
There is that. So we continue on. Now, normally Monday night is the Mid-South Coliseum, but with it on Sunday here, they go off to Grenada, Mississippi at the high school, January 28th. No results there. Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Valiant both off to Japan, so probably a little bit of a light card. But we will move on to January 29th, Tuesday at the Louisville Gardens and the Southern Tag Team Title Tournament. You heard me right, guys. Remember we talked about that bicycle, the loop. Here in Louisville, we haven't crowned new tag team champions yet. And in fact, a lot of times, whatever you saw in Memphis happened again in Louisville. Lots of title changes happened in both towns on different weeks. So even though the Interns have been the tag team champions again for a couple weeks, defeating the Rock and Rolls, they're coming to town here in Louisville for another tournament as the titles are still held up here. Just a tad bit confusing.
Yeah, folks. So just to clarify what Ray's telling you, this tournament in Louisville is to clear up the first time the titles were held up.
Right.
Not the second time.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. So they brought the Rock and Roll Express in for the Memphis tournament. This time around, they're bringing the Fabs in as the ringer. We're going to see what happens here in just a little bit. But first, we're off to our final piece of sound bites this week. It's Lance Russell going to interview the Interns, Stan Lane in that cap and sunglasses, the Dirty White Boys, and Lanny Poffo.
Tuesday night, the Louisville Gardens, big action of the Southern Tag Team Title Tournament. The first round pairings will go the Nightmares against the Daydreamers, Terminators going against Yamamoto and Kyle, the Patton Brothers against Adrian Street and Danny Hager, Randy Savage, Lanny Poffo face Kevin Kelly and Joe Lightfoot, the Interns against the Dirty White Boys, and also Stan and Steve, the Fabulous Ones, facing Eddie Gilbert and Iron Mike Sharpe. 11 matches in all. There will be a winner coming up Tuesday night, the Louisville Gardens.
You guys wouldn't agree to a return match if Eddie Marlin had nothing to do but schedule a tournament.
Lance Russell would agree on the return match when we beat those dirty white boys right out straight, and we were the champions. Now they got a big tournament, Jack. They got all the people in the world. Stan and Steve, the fabulous ones. 11 big teams entered right here, baby, for our belts. Well, Jack, I'm going to tell you something, baby. Tuesday night, when the smoke clears and the dust settles, I guarantee the Interns going to be the new, once again, Southern Heavyweight Tag Team Champions.
Right, baby.
Well, we'll see it Tuesday. Tuesday night, Louisville Garden's going to be a Southern Tag Team Tournament. Listen to the first round pairings. The Nightmares against the Daydreamers. Terminators against Yamamoto and Steve Kyle. The Batten Brothers against Street and Danny Hager. Randy Savage and Lanny Poffo against Kevin Kelly and Joe Lightfoot. The Interns against the Dirty White Boys. And Eddie Gilbert and Iron Mike Sharpe will be going against the Fabulous Ones. Right now, let's listen to Stan Lane.
You know, the Fabulous Ones have been all over the country for the past 9 months, but now we feel like it's time to come home. And I'm talking to you, Louisville, Kentucky, one of the biggest tag team tournaments ever to be held in Louisville Gardens. And Stan and Steve, the Fabulous Ones, are going to be there. Eddie Gilbert, you tried to mock us. You tried to steal what it took us years to perfect. We're coming for you and your partner, Iron Mike Sharpe. We got you in the very first round, so guys, get ready for a mouthful of dust because you're going to be biting it.
The Fabs want those belts back, brother, and there's a lot of other teams to do, too. You're going to have to be right here. That's on Tuesday, Louisville Gardens, Southern Tag Team Tournament, 11 matches in all. You can't afford to miss this one. Okay, final word to remind you coming up next Tuesday. First, let me say this. Wednesday, February the 20th, Championship Wrestling at Owenton, Kentucky. And by golly, next Tuesday, right here, 11 matches to decide the Southern Tag Team title holders. The titles are vacant. One of the matches will be the team of Kevin Kelly and Joe Lightfoot going against the impressive team of Lanny Poffo and Randy Savage.
Well, we're not going to underestimate those opponents. No way. No, you're talking Southern Tag Team titles, and we get rid of them. We go on to either the Interns or the Dirty White Boys. So it gets crazy later on. It gets crazy.
Got to win several before it's all through, Lanny.
Joe Lightfoot speaks with forked tongue. Him and anybody's a lousy tag team combination.
We'll find out. That's just one of the matches, and I'll tell you one is going to be something else. Dirty White Boys, opening round. You got the Interns, your chance to get it back.
You know, some of the Interns want to stand out here and say, hey, we beat the Dirty White Boys time after time. This shouldn't be a tournament. But if anybody watched that little videotape y'all had on here earlier, they can see the only reason the belts are held up, the only reason the belts aren't around our waist right now is because of Jimmy Hart. Well, Interns, we got you in the first round. I won't tell you something, big boys. Bring it on out to the ring in Louisville. We're going to get nasty. We're going to get dirty right off the start, brother. The Dirty White Boys ain't asking for no favors. The Southern Tag Team title's on the line. Tag Team Tournament, Louisville, Kentucky. Be ready for it, Jack. Be ready for the Dirty White Boy.
Okay, that's next Tuesday. You'll see that match. You'll see the Fabulous Ones who'll be against Gilbert and Sharpe. Lots of other action next Tuesday for the tournament.
Stan Lane, he says he's coming home to Louisville. How many homes do the Fabs have here? You have to wonder. The Interns going to take on the Dirty White Boys, much like the Memphis version in the first round, and the winner of that going to take on, I guess it would be the Macho Man and Lanny Poffo. So when you think about it, the Interns, they went through, obviously, the Dirty White Boys, Macho Man and Lanny Poffo, and eventually the Fabs here in this tournament. So, well, just like Memphis, they pushed them over strong.
Yeah, they did. I just picture Stan Lane sitting there with the list and going down. We're coming home to Jonesboro, Arkansas. Just every town that was home, you know. Like
we're coming home to Grenada, Mississippi. We're not working that town. Yeah, so we look at the card here. It's the Nightmares and the Daydreamers in the first round. The Terminators versus Tojo. Well, they say Steve Kyle, but we realize he doesn't return, so likely Johnny Wilhoit or something along those lines. Danny Hager and Adrian Street versus the Battens. Macho Man and Lanny Poffo going to defeat Kevin Kelly and Lightfoot in the opening round. I bet nails sold for the Macho Man. I'm betting. Also, obviously, we know the Intern's going to defeat the Dirty White Boys and the Fabs over Eddie Gilbert and Mike Sharpe. I don't know all of the brackets here. I don't have all the results in front of me. So we do know the finish is going to see the Interns steal another one out from the Fabs, though, and once again become the Southern Tag Team Champions. What are the odds that they win both tournaments? Could you imagine how screwy it would have been if we had two different Southern Tag Team Champions in two different cities?
It would be. And then the irony of if somehow the Fabs went over in that one, but then they end up wrestling, you know, they end up facing off and getting them held up between those two teams again in Memphis a few weeks later. It's so weird to think if you know, somebody traveled around, happened to be going out of town and going to that area and had just watched this tournament unfold in Memphis and then somehow end up in Louisville, and they're like, watching it unfold again. Not exactly the same, but the same result.
Right.
Like how do you explain that in kayfabe? Because I know that happened from time to time.
Had to have.
I mean, I know they used to do. Foley talked about in his book that there were, some of the people that went from, would make the loop from time to time and watch them lose the tag titles. Him and Gary Young dropped the Southern tag titles every night in 4 different cities.
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
I don't even know how you address that. But.
I mean, Louisville, obviously, their secondary town right now outside of Memphis, but all the other towns, they seem to be referencing the Memphis Southern Tag Title Tournament, but here in Louisville, they get their own, and I don't know if I overlooked this in a past episode or not, but there's actually footage on one of these videos. You guys can go check it out on YouTube of the finish of the matchup between the White Boys and the Interns that held the titles up in Louisville. The exact same finish that we saw in Memphis. So the titles held up in both cities with the same finish, the same outcomes. So, and then we get the tournament in both cities as well. So we had wondered, because we saw in Nashville. We wondered if they did the same angle there, and I pondered there's no way they would do the double pin in multiple cities, but apparently they did, at least in Memphis and Louisville, leading to this tournament here.
Which makes you assume that they probably went over in the finals in the exact same fashion that they went over the Rock and Roll Express
that would have
been
the
other tournament.
That would have been my guess. I would also guess they defeated the Dirty White Boys in the first round the same way as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy times, the territory days, guys. As we continue on, though, later in the week, Thursday, January 31st, the Fairgrounds Arena in Nashville. The advertised card there was Buck Zumhoff and Kevin Kelly. The Battens taking on Playboy Frazier. Boy, they're way behind time in Nashville. It's the Battens getting $500 if Stan Frazier cannot defeat both of them. So we're a couple weeks behind here in Nashville with the Battens and Playboy. Also on the card, this just keeps going on. Nightmares and Daydreamers. Lanny Poffo and Adrian Street. Dirty White Boys taking on the team of Iron Mike Sharpe and Jimmy Hart. We'll come back to that in just a second. And in the main event, Jerry Lawler picking and choosing his towns, but he's not here this week at all. He's in Japan. So it is the Macho Man Randy Savage taking on Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert in a Texas death match. Fun little main event. Actually, I might have enjoyed this more than Lawler. But I want to go back to Jimmy Hart working a lot of matches lately. Do you think that they're just like light on talent?
I assume so. It's just really weird after you've booked the Dirty White Boys initially pretty strong that now they're teaming against Mike Sharpe and Jimmy Hart, and how Jimmy Hart doesn't just get destroyed in it, which I'm pretty sure they've probably found a way around it. Yeah, to put Jimmy Hart in a tag match and almost presenting him as just an equal part, because we heard some promos about our last episode where they were promoting some of those matches. They were just kind of promoting it just like any other tag match. So I'd love to see footage of the Dirty White Boys against Sharpe and Jimmy Hart, and absolutely would kill to see some of that Texas death match with Savage and Eddie Gilbert for sure.
Oh, for sure. The barbed wire and the Texas death matches between those two. Yeah, absolutely. I just, I look at this here, Jimmy Hart and Mike Sharpe, and you almost wonder, did they go over? Because we've seen a lot of weird booking like that, especially protecting Mike Sharpe, but more so, we got to remember just a couple weeks ago on TV, Dirty White Boys were like in every segment. They were doing everything they could to get that team over. And then they show up on the Lawler show in studio as guests. Maybe they tore down TGI Fridays or something and got demoted on the card. I don't really know what's going on here, but the White Boys, obviously it's less than ideal opponents here. They're not even really feuding with Mike Sharpe. I guess you could argue, well, Jimmy Hart, it's one of his stable members, so it makes sense. I guess it does, but still just odd booking in general.
Yeah, and like you said, they spent a lot of time to build the Dirty White Boys up to just beat them like drums after that,
It's really weird.
Yeah.
I felt like they had something planned for them long term, and based on the upcoming results, I don't know that they're going to be here a whole lot longer. It's just really odd in general. I don't know if they gave notice or something happened. I'm not really sure what happens here, but what do you expect from a couple of Dirty White Boys, We continue on. One more show here. We're going to look at Blytheville, Arkansas. February 1st, that's Friday night. Another Texas death match headlining the show between the Macho Man and Eddie Gilbert. All of these matches, you'd think somebody had something somewhere. I really wish this would have took place at the Coliseum. Maybe we would have seen a little of it, but also on the card, it was Joe Lightfoot and Lanny Poffo, Nightmares and Daydreamers, Adrian Street and Johnny Wilhoit. Again, Dirty White Boys versus Jimmy Hart and Mike Sharpe. And like I said, Texas death match headlining there. So Up next, Gene, before we come back, guys, I just want to warn everybody, it's winter weather going on right now in the Memphis territory, if you haven't followed by now. The blizzard of 1985 still around, and it'll strike again. Next week, we're going to hear Lance Russell admit that several cards are going to be canceled, upcoming, sadly. Also, there's going to be a limited number of superstars showing up next week on TV, going to make for a fun episode, a very special episode. I don't know if you know what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, is when that weather hits Memphis. I've been up north some, and I know up there, you guys they treat the roads, they plow the roads, and the world doesn't stop. But in Memphis and down below where I was at, it didn't take much winter weather to just stop everything. And if these guys couldn't get to the studio, we still had a live show to do. So we just got to do a show with who's there. And boy, that gets interesting.
Boy, does it ever. Sadly, it's going to mark the final appearance, I do believe, of Jimmy Hart on Memphis TV.
That it does. And that is not something I'm excited about, but it is the reality.
Yeah, remember, guys, we're in 1985, and Jimmy Hart appears at the very first WrestleMania. He was there before that. And, of course, WrestleMania at the end of March. We're heading into February. We're in February. We just looked at Blytheville on February 1st. So Jimmy Hart, not long for the Memphis territory at this point. He's off to New York to bigger and better things. But first, a very memorable episode between Jimmy Hart and Lance Russell here next week. I can't wait to get into that.
Oh, yes. I'll play Jimmy Hart and you play Lance Russell as far as reactions. And
I can't wait. It's going to be a tremendous episode next time around Regional Wrestling when we head into the month of February here in 1985 in the Memphis territory. Gene, once again, I know you've been under the weather, fighting kind of a flu there, but you were kind of worried about how you sounded, but I think it was a fun show, man. I really appreciate you doing this.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate you working around it. I had a lot of fun, and I'm glad I didn't sound too bad. That was my only concern. I knew I felt it because you were very adamant about hey, man, if you're not feeling up to it, we don't have to record this week. And right. I was feeling up to it, but I was concerned because earlier in the day at work, I was sounding kind of rough, but I managed to clear some more junk out of my head, and by the end of the day, I was sounding a lot better, and I actually sound better right now than I have in over a week. So we lucked out.
Just a quick plug here at the end of the show, too. Gene has volunteered to my very first tryout of the video cast that we're going to be doing here with the WrestleCopia brand. And Gene has volunteered so kindly to do the very first one with us. And since it's sort of a test the waters kind of a deal, we're going to kick things off with a fun little show. We're going to do Grunt the Wrestling Movie. I don't know if I mentioned that last time around or not, but that's going to be a fun one. It's a fun story if you guys are into hokey wrestling movies, but I love all the talent that's involved. Dick Murdoch, Dick Beyer without his mask, the Destroyer. They're the Grunt brothers in the movie. Adrian Street is all over the movie, but the story, as ludicrous as it is, and I'll just very briefly here, it starts off with a wrestler, and he basically kills another wrestler in the ring, and he disappears. But then a new wrestler reappears under a hood, and these guys, they travel around for the entire duration of the movie, trying to figure out if the guy under the mask is Mad Dog Joe DiCurso, if I'm telling this story right. I haven't watched it in about 20-some years, but I do believe that's the entire point of this. And, we'll see what happens by the end of the movie.
Well, let's just point out, though, the guy didn't mean to kill the person in the ring. It was just a terrible, terrible accident. But I remember watching this, back around the time it came out in like 85, which is perfect for this time frame that we're in.
Yeah.
But I remember watching it probably around 86 or 87, renting it at the video store, and saw it a couple times over the years. But a lot of the humor of it was kind of lost on me back then. But going back and watching it more recently, now don't get me wrong, it's a dumb wrestling movie, but there actually is some really funny lines in it and some things that I missed the first time around that I know we're going to have a lot of fun with, and I'm not going to spoil it here by saying a couple of them. But folks, I'm telling you, trust me. And it's great is this was just something that I said, like, this offhand. We were doing this show and talking about Adrian Street, and that movie came up, and I was like, man, we should do a watch along on it. And Ray locked in on that, and he's like, yes. And we're doing it, and I'm excited. This is going to be fun for people who don't know about this movie. If you've never seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a long time, or if you watched it yesterday, This is going to be a blast. So please check this out because it's a fun movie. And as Ray pointed out, it's a great preview, a little window into the future of new content coming from WrestleCopia. These watch along video casts.
Oh, they're going to be a fun time, man. They're going to it's going to be a fun time.
Some of the things you've told me that you have in store. Wow, I'm excited. Whether I'm a part of them or watching you with the various other co-hosts, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch.
And we'll probably pop a few up on YouTube, but for the most part, it will be through Patreon for various reasons. And for anybody who wants to find Grunt the Wrestling Movie, I have seen that somebody posted it on YouTube. Pretty easy to access, about a 90-minute movie or so, I do believe. But for those who would like a copy, get a hold of me through Patreon, and I can try to guide you to where you need to be. But that's enough for now. It's coming very soon, guys. Grunt the Wrestling Movie, the video cast here as the WrestleCopia brand rolls on. And we'll be back soon, Gene, with another edition of Regional Rasslin as we head into the month of February here in 1985.
I can't wait, man. Like you said, we're going to bid farewell to Jimmy Hart, and that makes me sad. But we're also going to bid farewell to a few of these other folks and have some new people, new faces coming in. And I'm excited about that. So it's going to be a fair trade, I believe, moving forward.
Business is picking up indeed. Just stay tuned, guys. We appreciate your listening each and every week here on the Regional Rasslin Podcast. Going to be back soon. Thank you again, Gene Jackson.
Anytime, my brother.
All right, guys, it's going to wrap it up here this week. And, of course, you guys can follow me, Ray Russell, on X at Rasslin Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, Facebook.com/Rasslin Grenade. And we'll be back soon with more of that Georgia 81, Memphis 85, and UWF 86 right here on the Regional Rasslin Podcast, where we talk the territories.